What do you do when the corporate mandate demands a tough, data-driven performance review, but your leadership heart wants to cultivate development, psychological safety, and growth? Or how much energy do you waste trying to strike the perfect balance between constructive clarity and genuine empathy so your team actually hears the feedback instead of shutting down? Performance review season triggers an internal conflict for many of us between biblical kindness and organizational authority. You sit in the manager's seat carrying the heavy burden of judgment, tempted to water down your feedback because you're terrified that being direct makes you unkind. Or perhaps worse, as a high achiever yourself, you struggle to separate an underperformer's core identity and purpose from their workplace performance. You simply don't know how to address poor results without devaluing their worth. If that's where you find yourself today, you're in good company. For the ambitious Christian leader, this is an incredibly tough tightrope to walk. Today, we are dismantling the corporate anxiety and the spiritual confusion around performance review season. I'm going to hand you a practical 4-part framework to help you step into your organizational authority with absolute biblical integrity. It's a strategy built to help you care for your people through data-backed facts and deep empathy, so you can stop watering down the truth and start developing your team with precision. You don't have to choose between being clear or being kind. True leadership requires both at the exact same time. Do you find yourself sanitizing your faith just to fit into the corporate culture? Does your sense of worth rise and fall with your latest performance review? If you're an ambitious Christian woman navigating the friction between faith and work, you are not alone. Hi, I'm Jency, Jesus follower, corporate leader, and recovering overachiever. I spent years winning at work, but wrestling in my heart with the unspoken tensions of a secular workplace, until I learned how to decouple identity from performance, drop that corporate mask, and define success by purpose, not metrics. Welcome to Ambitious Faith at Work, the podcast for high achievers who want to lead with clarity, conviction, and courage, because you shouldn't have to choose between success and soul. So if you're ready to redefine success in a way that's anchored, authentic, and aligned, you're in the right place. It's time to stop hiding in plain sight and start showing up boldly as a light. Before we dive in, I just want to say a huge thank you for being here. This show is for you, and I love connecting with you directly. So email me at hello@jencymayer.com. and my email address is also in the show notes below. Send me the leadership questions you're navigating or the topics that you want to unpack next. And if what you're hearing resonates with you, please hit follow and leave a quick rating and review on Apple Podcasts. It only takes a few seconds, but that small action has a big impact. It really is the best thing you could do to support the show and to help ensure that other high achievers are able to find this community. Now let's dive into today's episode. Welcome back to Ambitious Faith at Work. I'm so glad you're here. I'm your host, Jency, and today we're tackling a core question so many high-achieving Christians wrestle with. How do I hold the company line on poor performance without making a good person feel completely worthless? This is the exact intersection of your faith and your corporate responsibilities. There's a tension that we feel that's often a hidden false belief of the culture or our own high-achieving background that tells us that biblical kindness means keeping the peace, avoiding conflict, and protecting people from discomfort. But avoiding the hard conversation isn't caring for the employee. It's protecting yourself from discomfort. But what if the performance review is not actually an act of judgment on your part, but an act of stewardship and care? True leadership rejects the premise that you have to choose between clarity and kindness. Because clear is kind, and addressing performance gaps with constructive clarity is the highest form of stewardship. It honors the organization's standards while protecting the employee's dignity, their identity, and their growth. You don't have to choose between being clear or being kind. True leadership requires both at the exact same time. So today, I want to walk you through a 4-part care framework that I use to navigate these tough conversations. It really helps me deliver clear feedback without sacrificing empathy while I'm still fulfilling my corporate responsibilities. Each step of the framework will cover both the what and the how. So the what is the content and the structure of the conversation, and the how is the actual delivery. We're also going to talk about the challenges that we feel at each of these different steps and some truths that you can hold on to help silence the internal tension that you may be feeling. So let's jump in. So the framework is the CARE framework, so C-A-R-E. The first step is to contextualize. The goal here is to establish absolute psychological safety while anchoring the conversation to a previously agreed upon baseline or expectation, one that you've both agreed to. Empathy fails when a hard message catches an employee completely off guard, or when they think that your goal is punitive. They need to understand first that your goal is positive. So how do you execute this? You're going to start with your positive intent. You're going to set the stage by stating exactly why you're having the conversation. You want to really ensure them of your positive intent and your commitment to them and their growth. And you want to set this up early in the conversation. Your mindset at this point needs to be that I'm giving this feedback because I care about their career, not because I'm trying to build a case against them. After you've set your positive intent, you really want to pivot to the expectation part. You want to pivot to that mutual baseline or goals that you both agreed to at the start of the performance period. So the conversation may sound something like, "Hey Judy, I'm bringing this up because I care about your career, and my job is to help you grow and succeed here, and I want to help you identify and clear any blind spots or things that may be getting in your way. And to do that fairly, let's look back at the expectations that we set for this quarter, which was to independently manage X, Y, and Z, and let's look at how things played out against that baseline." At this point in the conversation, the struggle that we often deal with is feeling like we're delivering tough feedback and that it's unloving, it's unkind, or it's confrontational. This is where we fall into that nice versus kind trap, where we avoid giving honest or critical feedback to spare an employee's feelings. Now, being nice may keep the peace and make you a fan favorite, but it creates an environment of mediocrity and confusion. So the cost is high. It can really impact careers by creating a false sense of achievement when the employee may actually be failing, or it creates unfair surprises and then the employee is blindsided in the future. It can actually impact the culture of your team because the trust that you have between you and your high performers begins to erode because they're watching you tolerate poor work performance to avoid conflict. But being kind focuses on helping the employee grow. It's specific, it's honest, and it's clear. Clear expectations are always kinder than vague compliments. So while being nice protects temporary comfort, true kindness takes courage and provides the clear, actionable feedback that employees need to actually grow and succeed. Brene Brown, I think, has the phrase that says, "Clear is kind and unclear is unkind." I love the simplicity and the truth of that. And we've also heard that sharing is caring, and I think that is totally applicable when it comes to feedback. Feedback is an act of care. Withholding necessary feedback is actually a disservice to your employee. If you care about your team members and want them to get better, you must be willing to honestly share where they can improve. Delivering the hard truth isn't unchristian. It's the ultimate act of loving your neighbor by helping them see their opportunities. In Proverbs 27:6, it says, "Faithful are the wounds of a friend, but the kisses of an enemy are deceitful." The truth is that unspoken feedback is a corporate kiss that sets them up to fail. Caring for this person means having the courage to tell them the truth so they can grow. Hiding feedback or the hard truth protects your comfort, but sharing it protects their career. The next step in the CARE framework is the A, which stands for anchor. So this step is about isolating the behavior, calibrating the gap, and then delivering the truth. Your goal here is to isolate the problem to something very objective, and then you want to show the exact delta between their performance and that standard. This is where you're calibrating. And then you want to state what the friction point was very directly. True care means separating the person's identity from their performance. So telling someone that they're unreliable really attacks their character and forces them to be on the defensive. But anchoring means you focus on the specific behavior while keeping that person valued. So how you execute this is you really focus on using objective, observable data points. You don't want to have sweeping generalizations about things they always do or things they never do. So by strictly isolating the problem, you're protecting their identity because you're going off of things that are observable data points. It's about what they're doing, not who they are. You're protecting their character by laying it out plainly, and you're stating the impact, and then you stop talking. Many times people like to do this through a compliment sandwich, which is where they have praise and then criticism and then praise. I actually advise against this. I think employees view the compliments as insincere setups, and I think that method causes confusion and triggers defensive behavior. So I think you should really separate praise from criticism. You should discuss positive achievements independently from their areas needing growth. This allows for both types of feedback to be detailed and actionable. Your whole mindset during this step is that your employee is a good, capable person. This specific behavior or output is what's falling short. So to put this into practice, instead of saying, "You've been careless and disorganized lately," anchor it and say something like, "I want to look at the last 3 client deliverables. They were submitted past the deadline and they missed the criteria we set. Let's look at what's getting in the way of those targets. I know you're capable of this execution, but this output isn't matching the role's requirements." The best feedback is always about what a person does, not who they are. So it's very important to separate their performance from their identity. Focus on the data and focus on the agreed upon expectations and standards. You can still value your employee while still holding a firm line on the standard. The struggle that we feel during this step is that we feel guilty about pointing out flaws or holding the position of judge over someone else. Leviticus 19:35-36 says, "Do not use dishonest standards. Use honest scales and honest weights." The truth is, you are not judging this person's soul. You're evaluating their stewardship. Holding an honest scale is an act of justice that honors the team, the company, and your employee. You are being a good steward of the organization's resources and faithfully fulfilling your responsibilities to evaluate your employee's stewardship fairly. The third part of the framework is to receive, which is really about holding space for their reality and their reaction. The goal of this step is to pause completely to let them process the truth you've shared with them. Empathy requires a monologue to become a dialogue. Once the truth is out, you have to actively pause and create space for their reaction without backing down from the feedback you gave. So how do you execute this? You start by asking an open, non-judgmental question, and then you practice silence. You don't interrupt, you don't defend, and you don't argue. You just listen to understand their roadblocks, their pain points, or their personal stressors. Your mindset during this step is that you stand by the standard, but you're entirely open to hearing their perspective, their pressures, and their pain points. This may sound something like, "I want to pause here because I know that this may be heavy to hear. How does the situation look from your perspective? And what obstacles do you feel like you've been running into?" The struggle that we have as managers in this step is that we have the temptation to lecture or steamroll the employee out of nervousness or frustration or our own anxiety. James 1:9 tells us that everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. The truth is that your ears are your greatest tool of empathy. You'll state the standard clearly, you'll step back, and you'll create a safe space to hear their reality. Don't fill the space or panic about the pregnant pause. Don't monologue out of discomfort or nervousness. Just push pause on anything you want to say and allow them time to process with you. This step is about processing and fostering patient listening. Don't rush their receiving of your feedback. So the last step of the care framework is to elevate. And this is where you're transferring ownership to them and you're investing in their path forward. The goal here is really for you to transition from being a judge into a coach. You're passing accountability to let them propose the fix, so they're taking ownership, but you're also explicitly detailing how you're going to support them to meet their targets. Delivering hard feedback with care means you don't just leave them on the field to figure it out. You actively step into the game with them to help them get better. You transition, again, from being a judge into a coach. So how do you execute this? Well, you start by asking them to drive the solution so that they buy into it, but then you clearly outline what your support model looks like. You define the resources, the training, or the check-ins that you're going to personally provide to ensure that they have the tools that they need. Your mindset in this step is that the mistake happened in the past, but you're fully invested in their future. There's 2 failure modes that often happens in this step. And the first is that the conversation ends too early. We don't actually ask them to think about their solution and provide a response right then. We often do it later, but we're missing an opportunity here. If you don't ask them to reflect and discuss a solution while they're in that meeting with you, you're going to lose the momentum of the moment. But the other thing that we often do, another failure mode, is that we are not prepared about what we can do to support them. So I want to encourage you to really think about this before each of your conversations so that you can be specific on how you can help them on their path forward. So the delivery of this step may sound something like, you can absolutely close this gap by taking ownership of your path forward. What are the 2 changes you think you need to make? Here's my commitment to you, and this is where you can insert whatever you think is appropriate. Maybe taking certain things off of their plate, it may be committing to spend time with them on a specific cadence, whatever it may be. And then you transition back to them, and you say, what else do you need from me to feel fully set up for success here? The struggle that we often feel during this step is the temptation to deliver the bad news and then emotionally check out, essentially leaving them to figure out the solution entirely on their own. What we miss is a massive opportunity to really transition from being a manager that delivers feedback to being a leader that's exercising a servant's heart. Philippians 2:4-7 says, do not merely look out for your own personal interests, but also for the interests of others. Have this attitude in yourselves, which was also in Christ Jesus, who took the form of a bondservant. The truth related to this struggle is that you are not a judge who makes a final judgment and walks away. You're a coach who steps into the game to help them rebuild. Your authority exists not to just point out their opportunities, but to also serve their recovery. True leadership means transferring ownership to the employee while also offering your personal commitment to sacrifice your time, clear roadblocks, and provide the tools that they need to win. So in addition to this 4-part care framework, I want to give you a quick prayer that I've prayed many times as a quick reset if I'm feeling anxious or uncertain about navigating a difficult feedback conversation. In essence, it's a prayer to remain professional, compassionate, and constructive so that I can deliver feedback fairly. So my prayer has been, Lord, give me clarity to speak the truth and give me grace to honor their humanity. With the 2 parts of this prayer, I'm basically asking for wisdom and a calm mind and the right words to provide honest, constructive feedback. But I'm also asking for the patience and the empathy to protect that person's self-worth while evaluating their work or behavior without blaming or shaming. As we wrap up today, I want you to remember this. You don't have to carry the heavy anxiety of delivering a hard message, and you don't have to carry the false guilt that holding a standard makes you unkind. The care framework we talked about today gives you the structure for the conversation and guides you how to deliver it, but it also empowers you with the truths needed to dismantle any of the internal tensions that you feel during those conversations. So as you step into this performance review season, put the care framework into use. The first step is to contextualize. This is where you're establishing safety and you're setting expectations. And remember that sharing feedback is actively caring for them. The second step is to anchor. This is where you're isolating the behavior, calibrating the gap, and delivering the truth. Keep the feedback focused on what they do, not who they are. It's about evaluating their work, not their worth. The third step is to receive. This is where you're creating space for their reaction. Turn that monologue into a dialogue, and remember that your ears are your greatest tool for empathy. And the last step is elevate. This is where you're transferring the ownership of the resolution to them while you're also investing in supporting their path forward. This is your ultimate transition from being a manager to being a coach. Your team doesn't need a manager who waters down reality to keep a sense of false peace. They need a leader who loves them enough to tell them the truth and respects them enough to give them a clear roadmap for growth. So take a deep breath before you open the next performance evaluation form or before you walk into the discussion and whisper that prayer. Lord, give me the clarity to speak the truth and give me the grace to honor their humanity. Remember that you're evaluating their work, but you're also honoring their worth. And you don't have to choose between being clear or being kind. True leadership requires both at the exact same time. My prayer for you today is that you go lead with the clarity of who you are, the conviction of what you believe, and the courage to live out your calling in every room you enter. Thanks for choosing to spend a part of your day with me. I'll meet you back here next time. Hey friend, I hope today's episode gave you a little more courage to be yourself at work this week. If it resonated, would you please take 30 seconds and text it to someone you know who's also navigating those unseen tensions at work? And I'd truly appreciate it if you'd leave a quick rating or review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening right now. It's the best way to help more women realize they don't have to choose between their success and their soul. All right, that's it for today. It's time for me to close those 20 open browser tabs and prioritize my soul over my screen. Until next time, let's stop hiding in plain sight and start showing up boldly as a light.